Journey with Judy. Honest, open, transparent. It's hot.
There's no such thing as perfect people. There's no such thing as a perfect life. So come
Okay, so good morning. I cannot thank you enough for choosing to spend your Sunday 30 minutes right here with Journey with Judy on Lake 96.1. I'm so excited and so grateful about the way that God is just moving in my life. I mean, at this moment, I have almost 20. I think maybe by next week's show, I'll have 20 speaking opportunities on my calendar. God is just opening doors and putting me on platforms with people that I literally learned my faith from. And now I'm sharing a stage with those folks. And so it is never, ever too late to be who God has called you to be. And so we want to be mindful of every moment and how we are living like Christ, seeing Christ, being Christ. So in the area of my life that I don't see Christ, nor am I being Christ, is my driving. So just so you know, I said that taking a kid to college does not get any easier. Getting your child's driver's license does not get any easier. I am no less afraid or more confident with my fourth kid than I was with the other children. As a matter of fact, this is really Bob's wheelhouse. He does the teaching of the driving. As you know, I have been followed to the station here. Robin doesn't know this, but there was a time where someone followed me here just to tell me that I was the worst driver they had ever driven behind. And of course, I said, I know, thank you so much for letting me know. They wanted to see if I was drunk. No, I just drive like this. I just drive so super oblivious. And so when I'm trying to correct my daughter, Campbell, who's going to get her license in just a few days, I have no credibility. I mean, my son Carter literally puts on the flashers, the hazard flashers, when he's driving in the car with me in the passenger seat because he just thinks people need to know that I am on the road. So I was searching through some emails and I came across this email that is just proof that there is a God, and that's actually the way it's entitled. And it has everything to do with somebody's experience driving with me in the passenger seat for just a journey from Lake Geneva to Fontana. So it was like 15. Robin, that's maybe should be our song on the break. Jesus, take the wheel. Okay, yes, Jesus needs to take the wheel because this was the email I received. So it was entitled "The Proof That There Is a God." Okay, this is from a cousin, a family relative who drove with me for 10 minutes. She said, I just want to give you a friendly refresher course of a few things regarding a car and the rules of the road. I will limit it to 3. She said, number 1, there are white rectangular signs on the right side of the road that have the words speed limit, which have really big numbers underneath those words. By your house, the number reads 25. If you look at your dashboard directly behind the steering wheel, there's a thing called a speedometer. That speedometer has numbers and a needle that point to the number that equals the speed you are going, otherwise known as miles per hour. She went on to give me an example of what should happen. Clearly, this didn't happen when I was the driver and she was the passenger. She said, here's what typically would happen. A driver sees a speed limit sign that says 25. They glance at the speedometer and adjust their speed accordingly to 25. Example of Judy's driving. Speedometer. I never heard of one of those. I just put my car in drive and it automatically goes 40. You mean to tell me I can adjust the speed? Robin never heard this story. It's so awesome. Number 2, there is a stick. This is a recommendation from my cousin who drove with me. There is a stick between the steering wheel and the speedometer on the right side. It's known as a turn signal. Some call it a ticker, others a blinker. If you tap it up or you tap it down, front and back, no, let me say, wait. If you tap this up, the lights on the right front and the back side of your car blink. Oh, I get it. Okay. This is like it's my first driving record. If you tap it down, the lights on the left front and the back side of your car blink. It's something that should be used when you're turning to indicate to other drivers what direction you might be heading in. The turn signal stick also has another function. If you push it forward, it makes your headlights brighter, known as the high beams or brights. High beams are used for unlit roads that does not have traffic on the other side coming towards you. Robin's acting like this is not new knowledge. It's apparently knowledge for Judy Hehr. But I've just never been in an accident. I just want to interject here. I've never been in an accident. I've caused many, but I've never been in an accident. She goes on to say, example of what should happen. A driver is going to make a right turn, so they tap it up. After they turn, they push the stick forward to turn on their high beams so they can light up the road. when they see another car coming, typically, they turn off the high beams. She said, an example of your driving. I thought the stick was just to turn on my lights. You mean that I'm not supposed to be driving with my brights on all the time? I thought people would blink their lights to thank me for lighting up the road for them. And are you saying that turning my wheel is not enough to let people behind me know which direction I'm going in? Robs, do you want to drive with me?
No.
I have
don't
to
want to drive going towards you.
Okay, so here's what happens. I have a couple people that help me out when I go to speaking engagements, a few girlfriends, and the only prerequisite is they're driving. They said, I'll go with you. You don't even have to pay me, but I'm driving the vehicle. Okay, so number 3, and then we'll be going to break. Number 3, multitasking is known as a strength in the workforce, but it is considered hazardous while driving. There is no difference in taking your eyes off the road to read a text or taking your eyes off the road to watch me read the text that you've asked me to read. Either way, Judy, you are not watching the road. I think number 3 is clear enough without stating any examples. This is from my cousin. This is how she signed the email. So I just want to thank you for proving to me that there is a God. However, getting proof once is enough for me. So do not get offended going forward when I refuse to ever drive in a car with you when you are behind the wheel. I hope my refresher course helps you. Please don't take offense, but do teach your children how to drive. I don't think even God is powerful enough to save us from your terrible driving skills. Love you, cuz. Oh my gosh. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about driving with intention and the impact that our direction and intention is going to have on our life. You're journeying with Judy right here on Lake 96.1. Okay, so the worst driver award, honestly, hands down, I got it. Okay, I'm the worst parent. I'm the worst cleaning person in my house. I'm the worst shopper because I go without my glasses. And I'm absolutely the worst driver. And I admit this. Robs, I try to teach people that if you know your shortcomings, and you can admit them willingly, then people cannot use them against you. So when that man followed me to the station and said, like, I just needed to see if you were drunk or high or both, and I said, nope. He asked if I was texting. I go, nope, just driving. Like, this is just the way I drive. So I realized that my driving is not a good indication of how you should be driving, but I do think that you being very defensive while on the road will help you with drivers, like me that are on the road. So here's the deal. I do make everything about God. And this particular show I did, it was like the 5th or 6th show I did when Journey with Judy started back in 2012. And it got such a great response because it is so applicable to our lives. And it has everything to do with checking yourself before you wreck yourself. I mean, because the bottom line is, the direction in which we're headed is a good indication of where we're going to go. And just because we intended to go somewhere different, unless we have direction with intention and a plan of how to get there and following that particular plan, the odds are we probably won't arrive. And so there's this invisible part of the driving experience that typically you wouldn't even recognize until you came up against it. This particular thing is located on bridges, dead ends, medians, unexpected changes in the road. And here's what it does. Its purpose is not allowing a lot of room for, margin for error. Robs, do you know the thing I'm talking about on the side of the road?
What is it, a dead end sign?
A guardrail.
Oh.
Do you know what a guardrail is? Have you ever hit one?
I never hit one, but I do know what it is.
So can you imagine where they're placed? They're placed like before the danger zone. So it's this large piece of metal that appears clearly in such a way that it stops you from going to the other side, right? Without that there, you're crashing and burning, okay? So the guardrail, here's what it is by definition. It is to protect people. It has this very specific purpose, and it is a system designed to keep a vehicle from straying into a dangerous or off-limit area. I mean, typically you're not doing this on purpose unless you're me. I mean, you can just imagine that I hit guardrails every now and then, and, obviously then, hopefully the people around me will call the police or some damn thing. Anyway, the purpose is to stop something from being worse than it could actually be, right? So my kids say, Mom, you make everything about God. Yes, because I think, and so does Andy Stanley, who I literally stole this teaching from, that a guardrail is also a God rail. So if we had a guardrail in areas of our life, a very specific guardrail that was going to protect us. It had this purpose. It was designed to stop us from going to a place that we shouldn't go, like maybe an off-limit area, or a place that might be dangerous. If we had that, right? If we had that implemented in our life, socially, sexually, financially, academically, relationally, if we had that, I would tend to believe that we would have less regrets. We would have less regrets because things would be avoided, right? I mean, here's the deal. If I had guardrails placed in the proper place in my life, and I allowed those guardrails to be a reminder to me of where it is I didn't want to go, what lines I needed to have drawn in the sand, and what would be the best possible option for Judy, I can promise you my bio wouldn't read bankrupt, drug addict, almost divorced, etc., because I would have chosen different things. Now, here's the deal. Before we go to the break, I need to remind you that God has allowed, in his permissive will, me to make many, many choices that were not for my highest and best good. And every time I did that, God was so beautifully saying, oh, this is going to be an amazing testimony. And the more choices I made that were not for my highest and best good, God ultimately has used those to create a speaking ministry that brings hope to other people, this radio show that I hope connects faith and life. But the reality is, I don't want for you what I did for me. I want you to be able to have these guardrails, and I'll call them God rails, in your life, implemented in such a way that there is just no way you're going to cross those boundaries and go to the other side. So stay tuned, because you do not have to have any religious convictions to relate to our topic today. You're journeying with Judy right here on Lake 96.1, and we thank Cunis Country Auto Group for sponsoring our show. We'll be back after the break.
86,400 seconds. 86,400 seconds. 86,400 seconds. Make them count, make them matter, make it now, make forever.
Okay, so if there's only 86,400 seconds in a day and you want to make a matter in every single way, then you got to get some guardrails. So our guardrail, also known as a God rail, is our personal standard of behavior. And that personal standard of behavior is not prevalent or relevant based on what somebody else is or isn't doing. So I'm not saying you can't do this or that. I'm saying I won't. Okay, your personal standard of behavior becomes a matter of your conscience. And friends, okay, I did kill my conscience. You can kill your conscience. You absolutely can justify things that you knew when you were 4 years old were not right, but today you're justifying it because everybody does or nobody does, or I don't care about everybody and nobody. I care about you. You who are listening to this show, you who want your faith and reality to collide in such a way that God is profoundly using you and choosing you to further his kingdom. And so if that's going to be the case, you can't be doing what everybody else is doing, Rob. That was my quote to one of my kids. You cannot change the world by being like it, right? There's no judgment when I say that. It's just hopefully, maybe it's a little bit convicting, but hopefully it's more empowering that we have regrets in our life, and those regrets generally come from things that we wish we did different. And even though God can use that for our highest and best good, it's so much easier to learn the lesson in the classroom and not even be taking a field trip. Because I'm a field tripper, Robs. Everything I had to do was through experience. I couldn't just learn it. So we can all agree, if we're even ever paying attention when we're driving, unlike me, even I know that there's a guardrail. Even I know that there's this area where it's dangerous, and it has to do with so many subject matters. And here's the downside. We live in a culture, and we are raising our children in a culture that absolutely baits them, promotes these things. And then when our kids, or when we as adults cross those lines, then it condemns us, right? Like we should know better. But everything that's being introduced to us is an attempt to lower the bar. So here's our verse for the day. Be careful how you live. Use your head. The days are evil. Make the most of every chance you got, which is 86,400 seconds in a day. Do not live carelessly, but purposefully. Know what God wants for you. So that is out of the book of Ephesians 5:15. And it's basically saying be careful how you live. Like, careful is prayerful. Careful is not careless. And it's about how you live. So if not you, then who? If you're not going to be the change you want to see and show other people that following Jesus gives you a strength and the ability to make different choices, have this standard of behavior, if not you, then who? So it says, use your head, the days are evil. That's because Robs, the ceiling has become the floor, right? I mean, how many times do you think back to like when we were kids, or when our parents would say, well, when I was a kid? Well, I can't even, it's so hard to raise kids. It's so hard to raise kids because you're trying to tell them to be careful and prayerful, but they're really reckless and crazy, living for the moment, right? Like living for the next thing. So if we're using our head, knowing that the days are evil, we are making the most of every chance we got. And if we only have 86,400 seconds, are we making them count? Are we being deliberate and intentional? We don't want to be careless. We don't want to be prayerless, but we do want to be purposeful and intentional and implement this standard of behavior that when we bump up against it, like our conscience lights up and says, oh, no. I'm not going there. This is my line in the sand. It's not enough to say I won't. You got to have a plan about how you are not going to find yourself in situations that are on the other side of that guardrail, on the other side of the danger zone. The other quote I sent to one of my kids this week said, like, you're one decision away from changing your whole life. Right? We just are like it. No great things were done by impulse. Great things get accomplished through a series of small, difficult, hard decisions, choosing what we want most over what we want now. And then we have like a pile of those, enough put together, streamed together, where we actually can know what it is that God wants for us and embrace that reality. So everybody does it. We don't care about everybody and nobody, we care about you. So I'm praying this week that you are, implementing some personal standards of behavior. And it doesn't even matter what your religious conviction, what age or stage you are in your faith or your life, a personal standard of behavior that says, hey, you know what? This is a matter of my conscience, what I want to do for my highest and best self. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to face up. I'm going to embrace what it is that God is calling me to, right? Let's do it. Let's just draw our line in the sand and say, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying I won't. I'm not going to, because my standard of behavior has me so committed that if I'd feel so guilty, my conscience would light up, and I don't want to know what's on the other side of that danger zone. So friends, let me remind you, compromise does not lessen the tension. It weakens our resolve. And I know that you are people who want to have conflict on this side of the guardrail as opposed to the other side. So let's remember our personal standard of behavior, because nobody plans on crashing and burning, Robs. Nobody. But we find ourselves in situations that we wish we could rewind and undo what we've done and what we've become. And the reality is we can. Today's a new day. It's a new week. So get some guardrails, my friends, and be careful. Live on purpose with passion. Rob says I got to go. Keep it hot, honest, open, and transparent. And before I go, every past show can be found on judyhehr.com, on my YouTube channel. Favor my YouTube channel, subscribe to it, and you'll get these shows in your inbox every Monday morning. Like my Facebook page, invite me to speak. I got to start telling people I'm out there doing this, not only in a confined, padded room with Robs. Okay, keep it hot, honest, open, transparent. Peace out.